There is a painful kind of loneliness that does not come from being physically alone. It comes from feeling unseen while surrounded by people, from realizing that the people you hoped would understand you never truly did, from waiting for support that never came, from watching someone choose a life that no longer includes you. And the hardest part is not always that they left. It is what their leaving makes you believe about yourself. You begin asking questions that slowly poison the mind. Why was I not enough? Why did they stop caring? Why did they choose someone else? What is wrong with me? But Buddhist wisdom points toward a completely different question. Why have you given other people so much power over whether you are allowed to feel whole? Because if your happiness depends on being understood, one misunderstanding can destroy your day. If your confidence depends on support, one person withdrawing it can make you doubt your entire path. If your sense of worth depends on being chosen, every rejection begins to feel like proof that something is missing inside you. That is not freedom. That is emotional dependence disguised as love. The deeper path is learning how to remain steady when nobody claps for you, how to continue when nobody believes in you, how to sit alone without feeling abandoned, and how to let people walk away without walking away from yourself. You do not need to become cold. You do not need to stop loving. You do not need to pretend that rejection never hurts. You need something far stronger. You need to become so deeply rooted within yourself that another person's absence can hurt you without defining you. And that is what these lessons are about. 1. Stop asking other people to confirm your worth. One of the deepest forms of suffering begins when you hand another person the authority to decide how valuable you are. You may not say it out loud, you may not even realize you are doing it, but every time your mood rises because someone praises you and collapses because someone ignores you, every time you feel worthy because someone chooses you and worthless because someone leaves, every time you feel confident because someone understands you and ashamed because they misunderstand you, you are living as though your worth exists in their hands. Buddhist wisdom asks you to look much more carefully. What exactly are you waiting for another person to give you? Approval? Recognition? Permission to feel good about yourself? A sense that your life matters? If so, you have built your inner stability on something that was never yours to control. People change, their moods change, their interests change, their loyalties change, their understanding of you changes. Someone who admires you today may criticize you tomorrow. Someone who once promised to stay may one day walk away. Someone who seemed to understand every part of your heart may eventually see you through a completely different lens. This is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is simply impermanence. The Buddha taught again and again that all conditioned things are unstable. Relationships are conditioned. Opinions are conditioned. Emotions are conditioned. Praise and blame are conditioned. If you build your identity upon things that constantly move, your mind will constantly shake. To become enough for yourself does not mean becoming arrogant. It does not mean telling yourself that you need nobody, that everyone else is useless, or that you should close your heart. It means you stop making other people responsible for proving that you deserve to exist with dignity. There is a major difference between enjoying appreciation and depending upon it. There is a difference between receiving love and needing love to tell you who you are. There is a difference between allowing someone to support you and collapsing when support is absent. Think of how exhausting it is to live in permanent negotiation with the opinions of others. You say something and immediately wonder whether they approved. You make a decision and immediately imagine how they will judge it. You post something, wear something, change something, refuse something, accept something, and part of your mind begins looking around for a reaction. This is a subtle prison. The walls are not made of stone, they are made of expectation. The lock is not outside you. It is inside the habit of needing confirmation. Buddhist practice invites you to observe this craving rather than automatically obey it. The need to be chosen is still a form of craving. The need to be understood is still a form of craving. The need to be supported by everyone you care about is still a form of craving. Craving says, I cannot be okay unless reality gives me what I want. Wisdom says, I may prefer something, but my inner life does not have to collapse if I do not receive it. That distinction can change your life. Suppose someone does not choose you. Your old mind may turn that event into a verdict. It may say, I was not enough, I was not lovable, I was not interesting, I was not important. But those are interpretations, not facts. Someone else's decision tells you something about their preference, capacity, timing, conditioning, fears, priorities, or path. It does not reveal the final truth about your worth. A door closing does not mean the whole world has rejected you. One person's inability to see your value does not make your value disappear. Suppose someone misunderstands you. You may feel a powerful urge to explain, correct, defend, prove, and convince. Sometimes clarification is useful, but there comes a point where constant explanation becomes a form of begging. You are no longer communicating. You are asking the other person to release you from the discomfort of being misjudged. Buddhist detachment means learning that you can survive another person's false opinion of you. You do not have to destroy your inner balance trying to edit every story people tell about you. People will misunderstand you because they see you through themselves. They see through their history, fear, jealousy, expectations, wounds, assumptions, and needs. You are not meeting a perfectly objective observer. You are meeting another conditioned mind. Once you understand this, you stop expecting flawless recognition from imperfect human beings. This is especially important as you grow older. Many people spend decades trying to become understandable, acceptable, and pleasing enough that no one will reject them. They shape their personality around other people's comfort. They silence preferences. They stay in places they have outgrown. They tolerate behavior that slowly wears them down. They keep saying yes because they fear what a no might cost them. Then one day they look back and realize they were present in everyone else's life, but absent from their own. Buddhist wisdom does not ask you to become selfish. It asks you to stop abandoning yourself in order to be accepted. You can care deeply without betraying yourself. You can be generous without making yourself invisible. You can love people without worshipping their opinion. You can listen to feedback without surrendering your judgment. You can acknowledge mistakes without turning every rejection into self-condemnation. To be enough for yourself begins with a quiet inner sentence. I will not use another person's behavior as the measurement of my existence. That sentence is not magic. It has to be practiced. The next time someone ignores you, notice the story your mind tells. The next time someone criticizes you, notice whether your mind instantly assumes they must be right. The next time you feel left out, notice how quickly your thoughts create a courtroom in which you are the accused. Observe the process. Do not immediately become the process. This is mindfulness. You begin creating a small distance between what happens and what you conclude about what happens. Someone leaves. That is what happened. My life is over. That is a conclusion. Someone does not support my decision. That is what happened. I cannot move forward without them. That is a conclusion. Someone does not understand me. That is what happened. I must explain myself until they do. That is a conclusion. Someone chooses another person. That is what happened. I am unworthy of love. That is a conclusion. When you learn to separate the event from the story, the mind becomes less vulnerable to unnecessary suffering. This does not mean rejection will never hurt. Buddhism does not teach emotional numbness. It teaches freedom from unnecessary attachment to emotion. Pain may arise, sadness may arise, disappointment may arise, but you do not need to build an identity around them. You do not need to say, because this hurts, something is wrong with me. You can say, this is painful, and pain is part of being human. A mature mind knows how to feel something without becoming it. You are not the rejection. You are not the loneliness. You are not the criticism. You are not the opinion someone formed during one difficult moment. You are the awareness in which these experiences appear and pass. The more clearly you see this, the less desperate you become for other people to approve of your life. And something surprising happens. When you stop chasing approval, your relationships often become healthier. You are no longer trying to extract identity from them. You can meet people more honestly because you are not secretly asking them to complete you. You can love without clinging. You can receive without demanding. You can appreciate without possessing. This is a far more stable form of connection. A person who believes they are nothing without you will eventually place a heavy burden on you. And if you believe you are nothing without someone else, you place a heavy burden on them. No human being can permanently carry the responsibility of keeping another person convinced of their own worth. Eventually, resentment, fear, dependency, or exhaustion appears. The Buddhist path offers another possibility. Two people can walk together without one becoming the ground beneath the other's feet. That is the beginning of true emotional freedom. Lesson 2. Accept that some people will never understand you. One of the most draining habits of the human mind is the belief that if you explain yourself clearly enough, eventually everyone important to you will understand. This sounds reasonable, but life repeatedly proves otherwise. Some people will understand you. Some will understand parts of you. Some will misunderstand you temporarily, and some may never understand you at all. You can spend years fighting this reality. You can repeat your reasons. You can carefully choose your words. You can explain your intentions. You can show evidence. You can remind them of everything you have done. You can speak gently, then firmly, then emotionally, then logically, and still they may not understand. Why? Because understanding is not created by explanation alone. It also depends on willingness, maturity, emotional capacity, self-awareness, honesty, and perspective. If a person has already decided what they want to believe about you, more explanation may simply give them more material to reinterpret. If they are committed to seeing you as selfish, every boundary becomes proof. If they are committed to seeing you as weak, every gentle act becomes evidence. If they are committed to seeing you as difficult, every disagreement confirms their story. You cannot force another mind to become spacious. Buddhist teaching begins with reality as it is, not reality as you wish it would be. Reality includes the painful fact that other people are not under your control. Their understanding is not under your control. Their memory is not under your control. Their interpretation of your behavior is not under your control. This becomes especially hard when the person's misunderstanding you is close. A stranger's opinion may be easy to ignore, but when a sibling, child, parent, spouse, old friend, or someone you deeply respected sees you incorrectly, the pain cuts deeper. It feels unfair because you think, you should know me better than this. Maybe they should. But wisdom does not depend on what should happen. Wisdom deals with what is happening. The question becomes, how much of your life are you willing to lose trying to control another person's perception? Many people waste enormous amounts of emotional energy defending themselves against people who have already chosen their conclusion. The same conversations repeat, the same accusations return, the same misunderstanding is reopened. Nothing changes because the real problem is not missing information. The problem is resistance, projection, or incompatibility. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it is recognition. Recognition that the conversation is no longer producing understanding. Recognition that your dignity does not require endless defense. Recognition that peace of mind is more valuable than winning every emotional argument. This is where Buddhist non-attachment becomes practical. Non-attachment does not mean you never clarify yourself. It means you are not emotionally dependent upon being believed. You speak honestly. You correct what is worth correcting. You apologize when you are wrong. You stand firm when you are not. Then you release what is outside your control. You allow other people to misunderstand you. This can feel almost impossible at first because the ego wants a clean reputation. The ego wants everyone to know, I am a good person, I had good intentions, I did not mean that, I am not what they say I am. But ask yourself, is your life meant to become a campaign to maintain a perfect image? The Buddha repeatedly warned against attachment to identity. Identity is fragile because it depends on maintaining a story. If you become attached to being seen as kind, then any accusation of selfishness can destroy your mood. If you become attached to being seen as intelligent, someone questioning your judgment can feel like an attack. If you become attached to being seen as generous, saying no becomes painful because you fear contradicting the image. Freedom grows when you no longer need a perfect image to feel secure. You can be kind and still be called cruel. You can be generous and still disappoint someone. You can be sincere and still be suspected. You can have good intentions and still make mistakes. You can make the right decision and still be judged harshly. You can speak the truth and still be disliked. This is not failure. This is human life. When you stop trying to control how everyone sees you, your mind becomes quieter because it is no longer performing every moment. You are no longer constantly checking whether your behavior is earning the right reaction. You become more capable of acting from principle rather than fear. Imagine making a choice because it is wise, not because everyone will approve. Imagine saying no without creating a 2-hour explanation. Imagine leaving a harmful situation without needing everyone to agree it was harmful. Imagine changing direction without waiting for permission. Imagine being misunderstood and still sleeping well because your conscience is clear. This is strength without aggression. The Buddhist path places great value on right intention. Your responsibility is to examine your own mind honestly. Why are you acting? Is there greed, anger, fear, vanity, revenge, compassion, wisdom, self-respect, confusion? You cannot fully control another person's interpretation, but you can become increasingly honest about your own intention. That is where your work belongs. If your intention is distorted, correct it. If your conduct is harmful, change it. If you owe an apology, give it. But if you have examined yourself carefully and acted with sincerity, do not spend the rest of your life begging someone to agree with your decision. Another person's refusal to understand you is not always a problem you are required to solve. Sometimes the deeper lesson is that you are learning to remain steady without being validated. A powerful part of Buddhist practice is allowing discomfort without reacting impulsively. Being misunderstood creates discomfort. It produces heat in the body, arguments in the mind, imaginary conversations, defensive speeches, and the desire to send one more message. If you observe this carefully, you will see the craving beneath it. I need them to see me correctly so I can relax. What happens if you do not satisfy that craving? At first, discomfort increases. Then, if you remain present, it changes. The mind slowly realizes that nothing catastrophic happened. You were misunderstood, and you survived. Someone believed something false, and your life continued. You did not defend every accusation, and you did not disappear. This teaches the nervous system a profound lesson. I do not need to control every perception in order to be safe. Over time, this becomes freedom. It also improves your discernment. When you no longer desperately need people to understand you, you become more selective about who deserves your explanations. You stop giving deep access to people committed to shallow conclusions. You stop expecting emotional intimacy from those who have repeatedly shown they cannot hold complexity. You stop arguing with people who only listen in order to respond. This is not bitterness, it is clarity. Your energy is finite, attention is finite, time is finite. Buddhist awareness teaches you to use them deliberately. Spend your life where understanding is possible. Speak where listening exists. Explain where there is sincerity. Remain quiet where there is only hostility. And remember that even silence can be compassionate when more words would only create more conflict. You do not have to be understood by everyone to live a meaningful life. You need enough self-awareness to understand your own mind, enough humility to correct yourself, enough courage to be disliked when necessary, and enough wisdom to stop carrying every opinion home with you. Lesson 3. Learn the difference between solitude and loneliness. Many people fear being alone because they have confused solitude with rejection. They believe that if no one is beside them, something must be missing. They treat an empty room like evidence of an empty life. They see other people surrounded by friends, family, noise, messages and invitations, then silently compare and conclude, I must be doing something wrong. But being alone and being lonely are not the same thing. You can be surrounded by 10 people and feel invisible. You can sleep beside someone for years and feel emotionally abandoned. You can sit at a crowded table and still feel that nobody knows you. And you can spend an afternoon alone, hearing only the sound of your own breathing, and feel deeply settled. Loneliness is not simply the absence of people. It is the experience of disconnection, resistance, and unmet longing. Solitude is different. Solitude is the willingness to be with yourself without immediately trying to escape. This distinction matters because if you treat all aloneness as suffering, you will run toward people who are not good for you simply to avoid your own company. This happens more often than people admit. They stay in conversations that leave them drained. They remain in friendships built on convenience. They tolerate disrespect. They return to people who repeatedly hurt them. They accept crumbs of attention. They allow themselves to be used, not because the connection is nourishing, but because being alone feels worse. That is not love. It is fear wearing the clothes of attachment. Buddhist wisdom asks you to face that fear directly. Sit with the room when it becomes quiet. Notice what arises: restlessness, sadness, memories, regret, fear of aging, fear of being forgotten, fear that nobody will call, fear that life is passing, fear that other people have fuller lives. Do not immediately distract yourself. Watch. You may discover that solitude does not create these fears. Solitude reveals them. The fears were already there. Noise simply covered them. This is why quiet can feel uncomfortable at first. The mind that has spent years escaping itself suddenly has nowhere to go. It begins producing stories. It reminds you of people who left. It imagines what others are doing. It compares. It judges. It asks, what is wrong with you? Buddhist practice teaches you not to believe every thought that appears simply because it appeared. A thought can arise without being true. A feeling can arise without being a command. An emotion can be present without requiring immediate action. You can feel lonely without texting the person who repeatedly disrespects you. You can miss someone without returning to a relationship that harms you. You can feel sadness without deciding that your life has failed. This is emotional discipline. When you begin to tolerate solitude, something important changes. You stop choosing people from panic. You stop asking, who will take away this loneliness? And begin asking, who belongs in a healthy life? That is a much wiser question. A person who cannot be alone will often accept almost anyone. A person who can be alone becomes more careful, not because they think they are superior, but because they no longer need another body in the room at any cost. They understand that bad company can create deeper loneliness than solitude ever could. Many older people struggle with this transition because life naturally becomes quieter. Children grow up, friends move away, some relationships end, work may slow down or finish. Social circles change. The world that once constantly demanded your attention can suddenly become less crowded. If your identity depended on being needed, this can feel terrifying. But Buddhist philosophy offers another interpretation. A quieter life is not necessarily an empty life. It can become a more conscious life. You finally have space to notice what constant responsibility previously hid. What do you enjoy without an audience? What thoughts appear when nobody is influencing you? What pace actually suits you? What do you believe when you are not trying to fit in? What kind of morning feels right? What kind of environment helps your mind become clear? These questions are easier to answer in solitude. People often say, "I do not know how to enjoy my own company," but enjoying your own company is a skill, not a personality trait. It grows through practice. Start small. Drink tea without reaching for stimulation every minute. Walk without turning the walk into a performance or a task. Sit by a window. Read slowly. Cook something simple. Listen to rain. Care for a plant. Write down what you are thinking. Take a quiet meal without telling yourself you are pathetic because nobody else is there. The activity is less important than the attitude. The practice is learning to inhabit your own life rather than constantly waiting for somebody else to make it feel meaningful. You may notice that loneliness often gets stronger when you resist the moment. You are sitting alone, but instead of simply sitting alone, the mind says, "I should not be alone. Other people are not alone. Nobody wants me. This is unfair. My life should look different." Now the suffering has doubled. There is the situation itself, and then there is the mental war against the situation. Buddhist wisdom often points to this second layer. Pain may be unavoidable. Resistance multiplies it. If you are alone tonight, you are alone tonight. That is one fact. Nobody will ever love me again is not a fact. I have been forgotten is not a fact. Everyone else is happier is not a fact. My life is meaningless is not a fact. These are interpretations generated by a distressed mind. When you learn to see them as thoughts rather than truth, the room changes even though nothing outside you changed. Solitude can eventually become refuge. Not an escape from life, but a space where you stop performing. You no longer have to impress. You no longer have to answer. You no longer have to explain. You do not have to manage somebody else's mood. You do not have to prove you are interesting. You can simply be. For many people, this is the first real rest they have experienced in years. The danger, of course, is using solitude to hide. Buddhism does not encourage fear-based withdrawal. The goal is not to become so comfortable alone that you refuse all relationships. The goal is freedom from dependence, not rejection of connection. Healthy solitude makes healthy connection easier. When you no longer need people to rescue you from yourself, you can meet them with fewer demands. You can enjoy their presence without turning their absence into a crisis. You can love someone and still have an inner life. You can share a day and still value your private hours. You can miss someone without losing yourself. This is balanced attachment. If your life becomes quieter, do not automatically assume it has become smaller. Sometimes quiet removes what was distracting you from your own existence. Sometimes the empty chair beside you is not punishment. Sometimes it is an invitation to finally sit beside yourself. Lesson 4. Stop chasing people who have already shown you their distance. There is a painful moment in many relationships when the truth becomes visible before the heart is ready to accept it. Someone replies less. Someone stops making effort. Someone only contacts you when they need something. Someone repeatedly cancels. Someone becomes cold. Someone no longer asks how you are. Someone who once made time for you now seems permanently unavailable. The signs are usually not completely hidden, but attachment makes us negotiate with them. Maybe they are busy, maybe they are confused, maybe next week will be different. Maybe if I try harder. Maybe if I become more understanding. Maybe if I stop asking for anything. Maybe if I prove how loyal I am. This is how people slowly teach themselves to chase. Buddhist wisdom asks you to notice what chasing does to the mind. It strengthens craving. Craving creates fixation. Fixation creates anxiety. Anxiety creates more behavior. You send another message. You check again. You replay the conversation. You wonder what changed. You look for signs. You try to become more useful, easier, quieter, more attractive, more agreeable, less demanding. Without realizing it, your entire attention begins orbiting someone who is already moving away. This is not love becoming deeper. It is attachment becoming desperate. There is dignity in recognizing distance. If someone wants less connection, you do not have to punish them. You do not need revenge. You do not need dramatic speeches. You do not need to become cold or cruel. You can simply stop doing all the work for a relationship that now survives only because you keep carrying it. This is one of the clearest forms of self-respect. You allow effort to become mutual. If it is not mutual, you see the truth. Many people fear that if they stop initiating, everything will end. Sometimes it will, and that is exactly why they are afraid to stop. They already know they are the one keeping the connection alive. But consider the cost of maintaining something that would disappear without your constant effort. Are you preserving a relationship, or are you preserving the appearance of one? There is a difference. Buddhist non-attachment is not passive resignation, it is clear seeing. You see what is present without covering it with wishful thinking. If someone repeatedly shows indifference, believe the pattern. If someone only values you when convenient, believe the pattern. If someone disappears whenever you need support, believe the pattern. If someone returns only when lonely, bored, or in crisis, believe the pattern. Patterns reveal conditions more reliably than promises. The mind often resists this because hope can be addictive. Hope feels better than grief. As long as you keep believing they may change, you do not have to fully accept that the relationship may already be over in the form you wanted. But delayed grief is still grief. And chasing does not protect you from loss. It simply adds humiliation, anxiety, and self-abandonment to the loss. There is a Buddhist lesson in letting go before hatred appears. Many people hold on so long that love turns into resentment. They keep giving, keep tolerating, keep hoping, keep waiting, until one day they explode. Then they blame the other person for everything. But often there were many earlier moments when a calmer form of release was possible. You could have noticed the distance. You could have reduced the expectation. You could have stopped overgiving. You could have allowed the relationship to become what it actually was, instead of what you wanted it to be. This is difficult because the ego interprets withdrawal as defeat. It says, if I stop trying, I lost. But there is no victory in convincing someone to offer you what they do not freely want to give. Forced affection is not affection. Forced attention is not attention. Forced loyalty is not loyalty. Forced presence is not presence. The Buddha's path values reality over illusion. If you must constantly manufacture closeness, closeness is already missing. Let people reveal where they stand, then respond with wisdom. Do not chase those who choose distance. Do not beg those who choose silence. Do not compete for a place in a life where your presence is treated as optional. Do not repeatedly explain the value of your loyalty to someone who benefits from it, but does not respect it. This is not an instruction to abandon people at the first difficulty. Relationships go through seasons. People become overwhelmed. Health changes. Responsibilities increase. Communication fluctuates. Compassion means considering context. But compassion does not require denial. A temporary difficult season is different from a permanent one-sided pattern. The mature question is not, did they disappoint me once? The question is, what does this relationship consistently ask me to ignore? If you are always ignoring disrespect, imbalance, manipulation, neglect, or emotional absence, then your suffering is partly being sustained by your refusal to accept what you already see. Acceptance can be painful, but it is clean pain. Chasing creates dirty pain. Clean pain says, this relationship changed, and I am sad. Dirty pain says, this relationship changed, therefore I must chase, prove, beg, compare, monitor, and lose myself. One is grief, the other is grief mixed with attachment. When you stop chasing, your life initially becomes quieter. There may be fewer messages, fewer invitations, fewer dramatic cycles. This can feel like emptiness. But look deeper. Often what disappears is not love. What disappears is instability. Your nervous system may have become addicted to unpredictability. You mistake intensity for connection because uncertainty keeps your mind occupied. When someone is inconsistent, you think about them more, not because the relationship is deeper, but because the mind is trying to solve an unresolved pattern. This is why stable relationships can initially feel less exciting to people accustomed to chasing. Stability does not produce the same emotional spikes. Buddhist awareness helps you see the addiction to those spikes. You begin choosing what is nourishing rather than what is merely stimulating. If someone walks away, let their departure teach you where attachment still controls you. Ask, what exactly am I afraid of losing? The person? The routine? The identity I had with them? The future I imagined? The feeling of being chosen? The fear of starting over? The fear that nobody else will come? Often, the deepest attachment is not to the person themselves. It is to the meaning you attach to their presence. When you see this, release becomes easier. You are not losing the only source of love in the universe. You are losing one particular form of connection. Life contains many forms: friendship, community, nature, compassion, purpose, study, service, creativity, quiet, self-respect. Spiritual practice. The mind narrows when attached. It says, only this person can make me feel alive. Wisdom widens the view. No one person is the whole sky. Lesson 5. Build a life that still feels meaningful when nobody is watching. A surprising amount of human behavior is performed for an invisible audience. People imagine who will notice, who will approve, who will envy, who will congratulate, who will be impressed. Even when nobody is physically present, the mind may still be acting for others. This creates a strange form of emptiness because your life begins to feel valuable only when witnessed. You cook something, but think about who would appreciate it. You travel, but focus on how it will look. You improve something, but imagine who might be impressed. You dress, decorate, work, exercise, learn, and sometimes even perform kindness, partly because another person's reaction gives the action meaning. Then, when nobody is watching, motivation disappears. This reveals dependence. Buddhist teaching encourages a life rooted in intention rather than performance. What you do matters because of the quality of mind it creates, not merely because somebody sees it. Can you take care of your home when no guest is coming? Can you prepare a beautiful meal for yourself? Can you learn something, even if nobody praises your intelligence? Can you walk, stretch, pray, meditate, or read without turning it into proof that you are disciplined? Can you keep promises to yourself that nobody else even knows you made? These are powerful questions because they reveal whether your life belongs to you. To be enough for yourself, you need activities that remain meaningful without applause. This does not mean achievements are irrelevant. It means achievement should not be your only source of worth. Buddhism repeatedly points toward the importance of everyday awareness. Washing a cup can become practice. Walking can become practice. Breathing can become practice. Listening can become practice. Eating can become practice. The ordinary moment stops being something to escape on the way to a more impressive one. Modern culture often teaches the opposite. It trains you to believe that a meaningful life must be exceptional, visible, admired, busy, and constantly progressing. If nothing dramatic is happening, you feel behind. But much of human life is ordinary. Morning light, a cup of tea, a conversation, a quiet room, a simple meal, a short walk, a tired evening, a book, a task completed, a moment of rest. If you cannot find any value in ordinary life, you will spend most of your existence waiting for rare moments. Buddhist wisdom brings meaning back into the ordinary. It asks you to become present enough to notice that life is not only made of milestones, life is mostly made of moments between milestones. As people grow older, this becomes especially important. You may no longer be pursuing the same ambitions. The world may no longer reward you in the same ways. You may receive less attention. You may not be needed as intensely as before. If your entire identity was built around productivity, usefulness, or being central in other people's lives, you may feel invisible, but invisibility can become freedom. Nobody is watching? Good. Now you can discover what you actually like. Nobody is applauding. Good. Now you can discover what you would still do. Nobody needs you to prove anything? Good. Now you can discover who you are without performance. This is one of the hidden gifts of solitude. A meaningful private life is built slowly. Create rituals that are not dependent on others. Wake up and care for your mind before entering noise. Keep your space orderly enough that it supports your nervous system. Read something that deepens you. Spend some time outside. Move your body according to your capacity. Prepare food with attention. Limit the amount of chaos you voluntarily allow into your mind. Choose what you watch carefully. Rest without guilt. Keep a few relationships that feel sincere. Learn something because curiosity is still alive. Offer kindness without expecting repayment. None of this looks dramatic. That is exactly the point. A stable life is often visually unimpressive. It may not produce stories anyone envies, but it can produce a mind that does not constantly need rescue. People often overlook the value of structure when they are lonely. Without external obligations, days can become shapeless. Sleep changes, meals become careless, the environment becomes neglected. Hours disappear into passive entertainment. Then the person says, "I hate being alone." Sometimes they do not hate being alone. They hate the unstructured life they created while alone. Solitude without intention can become stagnation. Solitude with structure can become strength. Buddhist practice provides structure because it returns you to deliberate action. You do not wait to feel inspired. You live according to values. You wake and practice awareness. You notice craving. You notice irritation. You notice comparison. You choose the next action carefully. Meaning grows from repetition. Not every meaningful day feels meaningful while you are living it. Sometimes meaning becomes visible only later, when you realize that months of ordinary practice changed the kind of person you became. There is also freedom in creating beauty for yourself. Many people reserve their best effort for others. The good plates come out when guests arrive. The house is cleaned when someone visits. The better clothes are saved for occasions. The special meal is prepared for company. Ask yourself what message this sends to your own mind. It quietly says, you alone are not an occasion. Change that, not from vanity, but from respect. Use the cup you like. Sit in the chair with the best light. Cook something you enjoy. Wear clean clothes even on a quiet day. Open the window. Care for your surroundings. You are not waiting for your real life to begin when someone arrives. Your life is already happening. This is one of the simplest and most radical forms of self-sufficiency. When you treat your own life as worthy of care, loneliness loses some of its power because your environment stops reinforcing neglect. Meaning also grows when you serve beyond yourself. Being enough for yourself does not mean becoming self-absorbed. Buddhism values compassion. You can live independently and still be deeply connected to the suffering and well-being of others. Help where you can. Offer your attention. Share knowledge. Care for animals. Support someone quietly. Contribute to your community. Check on someone older or more isolated. Do something useful that does not require recognition. Service creates connection without dependency. You are not asking the world to prove your worth. You are participating in life because compassion naturally moves outward. This combination is powerful, an inner life that does not depend on people, and a heart that still cares about people. That is very different from isolation. Lesson 6. Let rejection teach you instead of divide you. Rejection feels personal because the mind turns it into identity. Someone says no, and the mind hears, "You are not wanted." Someone chooses somebody else, and the mind hears, "You are not enough." Someone leaves, and the mind hears, "You are difficult to love." Someone does not invite you, and the mind hears, "You do not belong." Someone dismisses your idea, and the mind hears, "You have nothing valuable to offer." This translation happens so quickly that you may never notice the difference between the event and the meaning. Buddhist mindfulness asks you to slow down that translation. What actually happened? Then ask, what did my mind add? This one practice can prevent years of unnecessary suffering. Rejection contains information, but not always the information the ego thinks it contains. Sometimes rejection tells you that your timing was wrong. Sometimes it tells you that the other person wanted something different. Sometimes it reveals incompatibility. Sometimes it reveals that you need to improve. Sometimes it protects you from a path that would have harmed you. Sometimes it is unfair. Sometimes it is based on another person's limitations. Sometimes there is no meaningful explanation at all. The problem is that the mind prefers certainty. It would rather believe a painful, simple story than live with uncertainty. So it says, "I was rejected because I am not enough." Now the story feels complete, but complete does not mean accurate. Buddhist philosophy is deeply interested in how the mind creates suffering through identification. When you identify with rejection, one event becomes evidence for an entire self-concept. You remember old rejection. You collect proof. You build a narrative. Nobody stays. People always leave. I am always the second choice. I am not meant to be loved. This is how suffering becomes identity. But identity is built from repeated thought. You can interrupt the construction. Say, "This person did not choose me." Do not automatically add, "Therefore nobody will." Say, "This friendship ended." Do not automatically add, "Therefore I cannot keep relationships." Say, "My family does not understand this part of me." Do not automatically add, "Therefore I am impossible to understand." Specific pain is easier to carry than global condemnation. The mind creates unnecessary suffering by turning one specific event into a total judgment about life. Rejection can also reveal attachment. Ask why being chosen mattered so much. Did you want the person, or did you want proof that you were desirable? Did you want the opportunity, or did you want proof that you were successful? Did you want the invitation, or did you want proof that you belonged? Sometimes the pain of rejection is not about losing the thing. It is about losing the meaning you hoped the thing would give you. This is important because once you see the hidden need, you can work directly with it. If you wanted proof that you matter, practice not outsourcing mattering. If you wanted proof that you belong, create belonging through participation and integrity rather than social approval alone. If you wanted proof that you are lovable, notice how cruelly you treat yourself whenever someone says no. You cannot demand that the world heal a wound you keep reopening internally. Rejection also teaches humility. Not everything is for you. Not everyone will like you. Not every path will open. Not every relationship will continue. Not every effort will be rewarded exactly as you hoped. This is not pessimism, it is reality. And reality becomes much easier to live with when you stop demanding that it constantly confirm your preferences. The Buddha taught about suffering arising through attachment to desire. Desire itself is not the enemy. The problem is when desire becomes a condition for emotional survival. "I would like this relationship to continue" is different from "I cannot be okay if it ends." "I would like them to choose me" is different from "I need them to choose me so I can believe I am worthy." "I would like support" is different from "I cannot move without support." The first allows disappointment. The second creates dependence. You become emotionally stronger when preferences remain preferences instead of becoming conditions. There is another way rejection can teach you. It can reveal where you have been chasing the wrong environment. A flower does not conclude it is defective because it cannot grow in every soil. Some environments are wrong for you. Some social circles reward qualities you do not want to develop. Some relationships require you to shrink. Some communities value performance over sincerity. Some workplaces reward aggression over thoughtfulness. Some people only appreciate you when you are useful. Being rejected by the wrong environment can feel painful while still being beneficial. If you are rejected, do not immediately ask, "What is wrong with me?" Ask a better set of questions. Is there something here I genuinely need to learn? Did I act poorly? Did I ignore feedback? Was I expecting something unrealistic? Or is this simply not my place? Wisdom requires both humility and self-respect. Humility says, I may need to change. Self-respect says, I do not need to become whatever this person wants in order to be worthy. Holding both is difficult. Many people choose one extreme. Either every rejection proves they are worthless, or every rejection proves the other person is stupid. Both prevent growth. The middle path is more demanding. You examine yourself honestly without attacking yourself. You listen without worshipping the criticism. You improve what is yours to improve. You release what is not yours to carry. This is mature practice. Eventually, rejection becomes less terrifying because you know it cannot destroy your entire identity. You may still feel pain, but the pain no longer convinces you that life has ended. You have been rejected before. You survived. You changed. You learned. You met new people. You discovered new directions. The mind forgets this during fresh pain. It acts as though this rejection is final, but your own life contains evidence that endings are not total endings. Impermanence means loss. It also means change. The same law that allows things to leave also allows new things to appear. Do not worship rejection. Do not fear it. Let it become one teacher among many. Lesson 7. Become the person you keep waiting for. People often carry a secret list of what they hope another person will provide. Someone who listens, someone who comforts, someone who encourages, someone who notices effort, someone who believes in you, someone who speaks gently, someone who checks on you, someone who celebrates your progress, someone who reminds you that you can continue. There is nothing wrong with wanting these forms of care, but suffering grows when you wait passively for another person to provide all of them before you begin giving them to yourself. What would happen if you became some of what you keep waiting for? If you need encouragement, learn to speak to yourself without contempt. If you need understanding, become curious about your own emotions. If you need support, build routines that support your future self. If you need protection, create boundaries. If you need reassurance, remember what you have already survived. If you need companionship, learn to remain present with yourself rather than constantly abandoning the moment through distraction. This is not a replacement for human connection. It is a foundation. A person who cannot offer themselves any internal support becomes dangerously dependent on external regulation. Their emotional life rises and falls according to who is available. This creates fear. You become afraid of conflict because someone might withdraw. You become afraid of honesty because someone might leave. You become afraid of boundaries because someone might call you difficult. You become afraid of change because someone might not come with you. If you become your own foundation, these fears lose some control. Notice the phrase, foundation, not fortress. Buddhist self-sufficiency is not about becoming impenetrable. You are not trying to eliminate vulnerability. You are trying to stop treating vulnerability as helplessness. You can need support sometimes and still be strong. You can ask for help and still be independent. You can enjoy company and still be whole alone. You can grieve a loss and still continue. The goal is flexibility. A tree with rigid branches can snap under pressure. A tree that bends can survive a storm. The same is true psychologically. You want enough inner strength to remain standing and enough openness to receive help when it is available. Becoming the person you wait for begins with how you speak internally. Listen to your self-talk after mistakes. Would you speak that way to someone you loved? Many people demand compassion from others while giving themselves none. They make one mistake and use language internally that they would consider abusive if spoken aloud. This creates an inner environment that feels unsafe. Then they wonder why being alone feels painful. Of course it feels painful if the person you are alone with constantly attacks you. This is not an argument for false positivity. Do not tell yourself you are perfect. Do not deny mistakes. Do not praise yourself dishonestly. Speak accurately. Instead of, "I ruin everything," say, "I handled that badly and need to correct it." Instead of, "Nobody will ever want me," say, "I feel rejected right now." Instead of, "I am weak," say, "This is difficult and I am struggling." Accuracy is kinder than exaggeration. It is also more useful. Buddhist right speech is usually discussed in relation to others, but the quality of your internal speech also shapes the mind. Constant harshness strengthens aversion. Constant self-condemnation becomes habit. Compassion does not mean refusing accountability. Compassion means accountability without hatred. This matters deeply when you are trying to become enough for yourself. You also need to become reliable to yourself. Many people lose self-trust because they repeatedly break their own promises. They say they will rest, then overcommit. They say they will stop contacting someone, then return after one lonely evening. They say they will save money, then spend impulsively. They say they will create boundaries, then abandon them under pressure. Each broken promise teaches the mind, "My own decisions cannot be trusted." Then self-confidence weakens. Confidence is not created by motivational statements. Confidence grows from evidence. You tell yourself you will do something, then you do it. You say you will leave when disrespected, then you leave. You say you will protect an hour for yourself, then you protect it. You say you will stop explaining the same boundary, then you stop. Each act becomes evidence that you can depend on yourself. This is far more powerful than repeating that you are strong. Strength becomes believable when practiced. You can also give yourself the recognition you keep waiting for. At the end of a day, notice what you handled well, not to inflate the ego, to train attention. The mind has a negativity bias. It notices mistakes more easily than quiet competence. You may have handled 10 things responsibly and still spend the evening thinking about one awkward moment. Balance the view. You stayed calm in a difficult conversation. You cooked even though tired. You completed something you had avoided. You did not send the angry message. You kept a boundary. You chose rest instead of proving something. Notice, no audience is required. Private integrity is one of the strongest forms of self-respect. There is also a deeper spiritual dimension. Buddhism teaches that no permanent independent self can be found in the way we usually imagine. The self is a changing process of body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. This does not mean you do not matter. It means you do not have to defend a rigid identity every moment. You can become more fluid. You can release the version of yourself that needed everyone's approval. You can release the version that always chased. You can release the version that confused being wanted with being worthy. You can release the version that thought loneliness meant failure. You are not sentenced to repeat the same emotional habits forever. Practice changes the mind, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one boundary at a time, one quiet evening at a time. Becoming enough for yourself is not a dramatic transformation. It is the accumulated effect of hundreds of small moments in which you do not abandon yourself. Lesson 8. Let people come and go without losing your center. The final lesson is not how to make people stay. It is how to remain grounded when they do not. This is one of the hardest forms of wisdom because almost everything in human attachment wants permanence. When we love someone, we want the connection to continue. When we feel safe with someone, we want the safety to last. When someone brings joy into our life, we naturally want them to remain. There is nothing wrong with this preference. The suffering begins when the mind turns preference into demand. You must stay. You must not change. You must always love me the same way. You must never become distant. You must continue needing me. But no human being can sign that contract with reality. People change. We change. Bodies age. Priorities shift. Circumstances intervene. Death comes. Distance happens. Misunderstanding happens. Growth sometimes creates separation. Even the closest relationships are temporary in their current form. Buddhist impermanence can sound frightening until you understand that it is not a punishment. It is simply the nature of conditioned existence. Because things change, childhood becomes adulthood. Because things change, grief eventually softens. Because things change, mistakes do not have to define you forever. Because things change, new relationships become possible. Because things change, healing becomes possible. Impermanence takes away. It also opens. The problem is not change itself. The problem is our insistence that the pleasant must remain and the unpleasant must disappear immediately. A wise life learns to move with change. When someone comes into your life, appreciate them without trying to own the future. When someone leaves, grieve without believing you have lost the ability to live. This is not emotional coldness. It is a more mature form of love. You stop saying, "I love you, therefore you must remain exactly as I need you to remain." You begin saying, "I value your presence, and I recognize that neither of us owns tomorrow." This awareness makes love more sincere because it removes entitlement. It also helps you stop taking people for granted. Impermanence teaches appreciation. If you know a conversation may not repeat forever, you listen differently. If you know a parent will not always be here, you notice their voice differently. If you know your children will have their own lives, you stop demanding that their closeness remain unchanged. If you know friendships evolve, you stop treating effort as automatic. Impermanence can deepen gratitude, but it can also free you when relationships end. You do not have to turn every departure into betrayal. Sometimes a chapter simply closes. You may never get the explanation you wanted. You may never have a perfect final conversation. You may never feel completely satisfied with how it ended. Still, life continues to ask you to release. This is where your center matters. What is your center? Not ego, not reputation, not being needed. Your center is the part of your practice that returns to awareness. Breath, values, conduct, compassion, clarity, daily life. When relationships change, return there. If someone leaves, continue eating, continue sleeping, continue caring for your space, continue walking, continue doing what is useful, continue speaking kindly, continue limiting harmful rumination, continue observing the mind. These sound like small things, but in grief they become spiritual discipline. You are telling yourself, "This hurts, but I will not abandon my life because someone is no longer in it." That is enoughness. It is not pretending you do not care. It is caring without self-destruction. Sometimes people return. This creates another test. The old attachment may instantly reawaken. You may forget the reasons you let go. You may confuse familiarity with change. Buddhist awareness asks you to look at the present, not just the memory. Has anything actually changed? Is there accountability? Is there consistent behavior? Or are you simply relieved not to feel alone? Do not let temporary loneliness erase permanent lessons. A person returning is not automatically a sign that the relationship should restart. Sometimes the wisest response is kindness with distance. Sometimes reconciliation is possible, sometimes it is not. Your task is not to follow a rigid rule. Your task is to see clearly. This is what Buddhism repeatedly asks: see things as they are, not as fear describes them, not as desire decorates them, not as memory idealizes them, as they are. When you become capable of letting people come and go without losing your center, your entire approach to relationships changes. You become less controlling because you are less afraid. You become less desperate because you know you can survive absence. You become more appreciative because presence no longer feels guaranteed. And most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself in order to prevent abandonment. This may be the central lesson. Many people fear being left, so they leave themselves first. They silence needs, they ignore intuition, they tolerate disrespect, they betray values, they accept one-sided relationships, they overgive, they shrink, all to make someone stay. But if the price of keeping another person is losing yourself, the cost is too high. Let people leave if staying requires you to become unrecognizable to yourself. Let people misunderstand you if being understood requires endless self-betrayal. Let people choose someone else if being chosen requires competition for basic respect. Let people disagree with your path if your conscience remains clear. Let people become distant when life changes. You are allowed to grieve, but you do not need to chase every departing person down the road. The road is still yours. Keep walking. There will be days when enoughness feels strong and days when it disappears. You may understand everything in this lesson and still feel lonely at night. You may know not to chase and still want to send the message. You may understand impermanence and still wish something had lasted. Do not turn practice into another reason to judge yourself. Buddhist practice is not about becoming emotionally perfect. It is about becoming increasingly awake to what the mind is doing. Notice, return, notice again, return again. That is the path. You do not become free in one decision. You become free through repeated non-cooperation with the habits that once controlled you. You stop chasing, you stop over-explaining, you stop begging, you stop measuring yourself by who stays. You stop turning solitude into proof of failure. You stop using rejection as identity. You stop waiting for others to provide every form of care. Gradually, your inner life becomes less dependent on external permission. Then being alone changes. It no longer feels like a verdict. It becomes a circumstance. Sometimes pleasant, sometimes difficult, always workable. And when someone does come into your life, you meet them from a better place. Not, please complete me, but I am glad you are here. Not, promise you will never leave, but while you are here, let us be honest. Not, tell me who I am, but let us see each other clearly. Not, save me from loneliness, but let us share this part of the path. This is love without desperation, connection without possession, care without self-abandonment. And when nobody understands, supports, or chooses you, you are not left with nothing. You are left with your awareness, your values, your practice, your capacity to begin again, your ability to care for your own mind, your ability to walk forward. That is enough to build from, and sometimes it is more than enough.